Hello, shalom to my holy sisters and maybe even brothers out there watching this. This is Queen Yarin, and today we're going to be diving in to a little bit of Pesach prep. I know, and I'm really creating this because there's a lot out there. This holiday is super loaded and we're busy and we got a lot to do. So this video is kind of just an overview, but a deep overview with a lot of different meanings, deeper meanings, the tastes. I think that part of being spiritual in the Jewish sense is bringing spirit to the ritual and really making sure that all the rituals, all these things that we're doing and we've been doing by rote for maybe 3,000 years, we're really infusing the spirit in it, the meaning in it, the deeper essence into it. And then in that way, we're making it engaging, we're making it experiential, and we're making it spiritual. So that really is the whole idea and why we learn the deeper meaning of all of these things. So like any holiday, Pesach has a body and a soul, a physical element to it and a spiritual element to it. So we're going to go over both of them, both the physical things, the practical things, ABC, what you have to do, how you have to do it in order to prepare for Pesach and during Pesach, and then the spiritual side of it, all of the deeper meanings. There's so many customs, there's so many things and orders. Seder means order, Seder means order. So we have a lot of things to go through. Let's dive right in. Also, obviously, as always, reach out to me, any questions, any insights. I'm your girl. Okay, so firstly, let's just begin with pre-Pesach. Let's contextualize where we even are in the Jewish calendar. Pesach is the time of spring. It's Chag HaAviv, the holiday of spring, and it happens during the full moon of the month of Nisan. Nisan is the current month that we're in, and it is it's also known as the New Year of the Kings. Nisan is the time of spring, and it also comes from the word Nes, which means miracles. And really, this is all a month of miracles. Our exodus from Egypt was a miracle, and all of the other things that happened to us while we were in the desert and before in Egypt and coming into the land, everything was full of transcendental, above nature miracles. So that's the month that we're in, the month of Nisan. And when Pesach comes in, it's the full moon, so all the good vibes, okay? So right before Pesach, what every single Jew should do, don't have to, but most Jews clean their house for Pesach. Some people like going overboard. Some people just, do it as it needs to be done. I'm not into going crazy, but what we do is that we start cleaning the house. My grandmother, for example, she starts doing this like 2 months before Pesach, okay? So people like taking their time with it, but basically we start cleaning, not just the kitchen, we also clean every single other part of the house, anywhere the food could have gone into, kids' playrooms, your bed, maybe you like eating there sometimes, I don't know. But the whole idea is to start cleaning the house and making sure that there's no crumbs, even in between books. People go through every single book in their library, open the books, kind of wash, wiggle all the books out. So really, you're doing a spring clean through your house. I think that it's also really an amazing opportunity. I'm a minimalist. I love not having a lot of things. So just as this is always an amazing time to just throw away stuff and really have that spring clean vibe. So once we clean the entire house and every single room is deemed kosher, we then move on to the kitchen and make sure that we clean the entire kitchen. What you do is that you take all of the things that you have that are chametz and you put them away and you put them in a cupboard. What you can throw away, you should rather throw away, but what you can, you put in a cupboard, okay? We'll get to what we do with that in a second, but part of koshering the kitchen for Pesach is actually making all of the cutlery and crockery kosher. So how do we do that? We put it in boiling hot water. Normally in different communities, the local shul will have kind of like this big boiling hot thing, and you go in and you put in all of your cutlery and crockery. You can also kosher a lot of the things at home. There's different ways to do it, but basically you have to burn all of the chametz out of every single crevice of every single one of your pots that you'll be using. A lot of people literally have an entire new kitchen for Pesach, but anyway, you get the point. You clean up all your stuff, your kitchen becomes kosher, clean, amazing for Pesach. Then what you do, and this is really a very meritful thing to do, is that you have to sell all of your chametz. Selling your chametz Basically, you can do it online. You type in like sell chametz and they sell the chametz for you. I'm not going to go into that. It's just a halachic thing that we do so that you don't own any chametz over Pesach. I am going through all these practical things. If you want to dive into more of the spiritual stuff, the deeper stuff, you can fast forward on this video. But if we just want to go through the first practical steps, this is where we're still at. Remember, body and soul. We got to do both. We can't just be flying up there. We have both of these things. Both of them are important. Okay, so then we sell the chametz, and then the last thing that we do is at the night before. The two last things that we do the night before Pesach. There's a whole ritual that you do with a feather and a candle and a wooden spoon, and you go and you find different little pieces of chametz that you hide in different corners. People make a whole thing out of it. They write different things of their, like, in a world that they want to burn or throw out. And then the next day when we do the bi'ur chametz, which is the burning of the chametz, they take all these pieces of paper where they wrote on the different things that they want to burn away with the chametz, and then they put it in the fire. So the night before the final day of Pesach, we do this little search, and then the next day in the morning before Pesach comes in the night, we actually do a big fire and we say a prayer and we throw in the chametz. Now, I used to live in Jerusalem, and every single year it was, I wouldn't say it was a party, but it was just an incredible experience where you walk around the neighborhood and there's just these huge fires everywhere, like people throwing in their stuff. A lot of it was plastic. Was not mad about that whole situation, but it was really, besides for that, it was a really cool experience, and I encourage you to also do it, even if you just turn on your barbecue and throw your chametz in there. Just not, obviously not all of your chametz, but just the little pieces from the night before. Beautiful. Okay, so on the physical end, I think we can just leave with that. We have the cleaning the house for chametz. We have the selling the chametz, obviously turning over your kitchen, and the bdikat chametz, which is checking for chametz the night before, and we have the bi'ur chametz, which is the burning of the chametz on the morning of Pesach. Then there's a certain time on the day of Pesach that you stop eating chametz. It's usually, I think, about midday, and that means that you can't eat chametz all the way up until the Seder. You stop eating chametz halfway through the day, and then you can only eat matzah in the evening. It's kind of like this weird time where you can't eat matzah, but you also can't eat chametz. So that's on the day of Pesach. Then we have the Seder on the first day. For some people living in the diaspora, there's 2 Seders. I'm happy there's just one, because one is already a lot. But basically the whole idea of the Seder is that it is 15 separate steps, and each step has its unique role spiritually. The whole idea of the Seder is to go through a journey on the night of Pesach, because they say that the night of Pesach is a very holy night. It's a night where we left Egypt. What is this whole idea of Egypt? What does it mean to go from a place of enslavement to a place of freedom, to go to the promised land? These are all the ideas that Pesach comes to teach us. And the whole process of the Seder is this emancipation from slavery to freedom. And some people even say that these 15 steps are kind of the steps, and each step of the journey of man from conception to spiritual enlightenment, both on an individual level and also on a collective level from Am Yisrael, from the inception of us as a people, as a nation, all the way to us finally bringing in the times of Mashiach. So this whole Seder, these 15 steps, are very, very symbolic. And besides for them, being practical, we have the 15 steps, which are Kadesh, let's see if I can do it, Kadesh, Uchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Magid, Rachza, Motzi, Matzah, Maror, Korech, Shulchan, Orech, Tzafun, Barech, Halel, Nirtza. Boom. 15. And each one of these steps has deep meanings, because each one is part of the order, the Seder. Seder in Hebrew means order, right? So each one of these steps is part of the order of things, the spiritual evolvement of the night. And they say that, like, on the night of Pesach, you get almost like a new neshama, a new soul. What does it mean? It's like a new consciousness that you can bring into this new year, a consciousness that is emancipated from maybe old things, old habits, an old kind of you. And Pesach is this night of us because we were reborn on the night of Pesach as being now a free people, so too on an individual level, it's a night where we are each individually reborn. There is so much to say about these 15 steps, but I would just invite you to just read a little bit about them. I have something that you can read, but that's kind of the insight of the Seder. Another thing that I will say is the entire Haggadah, which is what we read of the Seder, and then we get to eat at the end. The entire Haggadah is the story of us leaving Egypt, and every single part of it, like the part of the 4 sons asking the questions, each part has a lot of deep, hidden inner meanings. And I'm just saying, if you were to learn them, and if you were to really go into the inside of the entire Haggadah, it would you could study it for an entire year and you still wouldn't get through it. Like, there's just so much depth, so many ideas. They bring in a lot of things from all over the Torah and different places, and really it is a deeply holy, incredible spiritual text, and we get to read it once a year. So that's kind of the 15 steps and into the Haggadah. One of the interesting things about the night is that it's all about education. It's all about the children asking questions, the children getting involved, making it experiential for the children. And why do we do that? We do that because everything about our religion, everything about Judaism is about creating continuity. It's about instilling Jewish identity. So when the night of the Seder comes, what we want to do is that we want the children to be engaged so that we can teach them the story and they can be part of it and they can have memories about it when they grow up. I still remember our Pesach Seders when I was a child, and my grandfather would come in with a white sheet and he would pretend to be Eliyahu Navi, Elijah the prophet, and I just remember all of these things that would keep us engaged and would tell and teach us the story. And I think that story is, if not one of our strongest suits, but Jews, we're such good storytellers, and the whole idea of Pesach is to tell the story. That's actually the biggest mitzvah on the Pesach night. It's to tell the story of the Exodus, and not just to tell the story of the Exodus, but actually to tell the story of all of the miracles that happened during the Exodus. So the night is all about encouraging the children to ask a whole bunch of different questions. One of them, per se, is the question of, at the beginning of the night, we take the kalpas, one of the herbs, and we dip it in salt water, right? So part of the night is the children say, why are we dipping this vegetable in the salt water? Like, why are we doing that? And just to give you a taste to the depths of the inner meaning, kalpas, the word, has 2 meanings. One of them is a root vegetable, and the other one is a form of wool, a form of cotton, like a kind of fabric and material. And it says that the kalpas as in the fabric kalpas, hints at the multicolored coat that Joseph had. And what did his brothers do? They sold him and they dipped his coat in blood. In the same way that we dip the kalpas in salt water, they dipped his coat in blood. And what does this all teach us? It all teaches us that the reason that the Jews were even in Egypt to begin with is because their brothers, the 12 sons, had so much strife between them, had so much hatred between them. And that hatred between the brothers, that lack of unity, is what eventually caused the Jewish people to go down into Egypt and create this long exile that we had. So we think that it's all about taking the raw vegetable and dipping it in the salt water that really symbolizes the tears, but actually there's such a deeper meaning to it. And I think that is just the beauty of Judaism. And like I said, that is all part of putting the spirit into the ritual and understanding the deeper meaning, because every single one of these things has such deep meaning. I wish I could teach you everything, but this is going to be enough for tonight. But amazing. So that's kind of the night. Then we also have the whole afikoman, which is another thing that we the part of the matzah that we hide, and then the children look for it at the end of the night. That's another mechanism that we have to keep the children engaged and to keep them there. And I think that that's something really beautiful about Judaism as a whole, is that it's all about passing it on, teaching experiences, and Pesach is just another beautiful opportunity to do that. So now that we're done with the physical, let's kind of move into, the deeper meanings, the more spiritual side of all of these mitzvot. Now, as I said, these are loaded. There's literally hundreds of ideas, so I cannot cover all of them, but I'm going to cover just a few. So the first one is, let's talk about this whole idea of matzah and chametz. What is the whole thing of why are we even just, what is this thing, an obsession with like not eating chametz on Pesach? So the whole idea of chametz is that chametz represents, if you think about bread, if you think about flour, what is the chametz? The chametz is the yeast. It's the part of it that makes it rise. It's the part of it that blows it up. And in Judaism, we learn that chametz refers to the ego. It refers to pride. So in this the lesson that we have during Pesach is all about ego, and it's all about pride. And when we eat the matzah, and this is, for example, one of the 15 steps in the Seder is eating the matzah, is that we're ingesting the nullification of the ego. We are using this symbol as something that we want to take into ourselves. We want to take into ourselves just nullifying our pride and knowing that nothing that we have is from us and all is from Hashem. And that the whole idea of the chametz is that everything in our lives that gives us this fake sense of self, this fake sense of ani be'otem yadi, I do and I create and I am the one. Pesach is really the time to just kind of like deflate it. And that's why chametz is anything that is not inflated. So chametz and matzah is all about the inflation of ego and pride. So the first lesson that we learn on Pesach is the deflation of ego and pride, and this is what we learn out of matzah. This simple, flat, unsexy, uncrunchy. Well, it's crunchy, but it's not like this big, full piece of bread. It is tiny. You get it. Okay, so pride and ego, number one. Number two, when we talk about Mitzrayim, which is the Hebrew word for Egypt, we're moving from Mitzrayim, from Egypt, to Eretz Israel, to the Promised Land. Now, Mitzrayim, the root word of Mitzrayim is actually Meitzal. Meitzal means a strait, not a strait like something that is constricted, right? And the whole idea of Pesach is to really understand what parts of your psyche are keeping you in a constricted state of consciousness. What parts of you are keeping you, for each person it's different, but are keeping you blocked off. It could be blocked off from your heart. It could be blocked off, whatever that is for you. But the whole idea is that Mitzrayim is all about the things that are constricting us, that are making us small and preventing us from just being, first of all, ourselves, being connected, being in a mode of expression, in a mode of connection, really being in our promised land. For every person, there's a different promised land, but the whole idea of Pesach is that it gives us this chance, this opportunity. Pesach is a spiritual time. It's like a portal that is being opened for us, and really, it's a time for us to break through these constricted parts of us and let us enter our own personal promised land, our own Eretz Israel. So that is the difference between Mitzrayim and Eretz Israel. That Mitzrayim is the constricted consciousness and Eretz Israel is the expanded consciousness. And really, this is the time you can even sit down and think before the Seder, what are my straits? What are my constrictions? And for each person, that's something else. I know that for myself, and I'll share this vulnerably, one of the things that for me are my constraints is my continuous desire to be running and doing and experiencing. I'm always chasing the different sparks, and at the end of the day, that does not allow me to get to my promised land, to get to my Israel. So that is something that I per se am going to be working on this Pesach, and I know that the energy of Pesach, which is the energy of emancipation, when I become aware of these things and I can pray to Hashem to be able to help me transcend these things, that's when it's going to happen, okay? So, number one, we spoke about the idea of matzah and chametz, of ego and pride. Number two, we spoke about Mitzrayim, that this is an opportunity to come out of everything that is constricting us. The third is this idea of Pesach. Pesach means Pesach. Pe, mouth, sach, speaks. The mouth that speaks. The whole idea of Pesach is to tell the story of the Exodus, but not just to tell any story, not just to tell the story that we were slaves and then we made it out of Egypt. It's actually, and I know that it's a bit hard for us to all understand, but it's all about sharing the stories of the miracles that the Jewish people went through from the time that they were in Egypt until the time that they got into the land of Israel. And I think that when you look at ourselves right now, the Jewish people, even just this week, everything that happened with Iran, 300 missiles, ballistic missiles coming into Israel, everyone the next day was saying on their social media, last night was a miracle, last night was amazing. But first of all, no, it wasn't a miracle. Miracles are something that are physicality, material that transcends physical laws of nature. What happened when we brought down those missiles was not a miracle. It was something really physical. It was science. We have good military. But there's something about that moment that made us feel like we just went through a miracle. And that's why even when we're thinking about the miracles that happened during Pesach, and when we can't even start to begin and imagine and fathom the clouds of glory that walked with us throughout the desert and that actually safeguarded us when we were in the desert, in the same way that we can't fathom the fact that there were miracles like that and that these specific clouds moved with us, maybe at that time it was part of nature. Whatever it is, point is that I think that right now we're experiencing things that feel to us as miracles, and maybe we don't know what real miracles are, but really the whole idea of Pesach is to celebrate the miracles. Okay. Another thing that I wanted to say, and this is really interesting, is that throughout time there's been different kinds of Judaisms that have popped up, and you know, a lot of the reformations of Judaism have been to try to water down Judaism, to try and make things just a little bit less heavy, less strict. You know, we can have Shabbat, but like we can do everything on Shabbat. You know, we can just have dinner with our family. It's fine. But I think what Pesach teaches us, because Pesach is such a festival that has so many stringencies, and no matter what kind of Jew you are, you're probably gonna at least have a Seder, at least eat some matzah, whatever that is your Pesach. But still, Pesach is one of those things that throughout the generations we've always kept. And I think that the beauty of that is that it's kind of funny because it's the most strict of all the holidays. And if you were to say to a person like, what Jewish holidays do you keep, they would probably say Pesach is one of the top ones, even if they don't observe the other holidays. So I think that as Jews, a lot of the times we try kind of find the shortcuts, but at the end of the day, when you look at the power of Pesach and the power of ritual and the power of law, is that no matter what, we still want it and we still need it, and we can see that that is something that has been a very big part of the Jewish story throughout all of this time. One other thing which is kind of like high level on the Jewish philosophy spectrum of ideas is this. Pesach is in the month of Nisan. Nisan, every single Hebrew month has a tikkun, a rectification of a different one of our senses. And Nisan is actually the sense of speech. And it says in Chassidut and deep in the Torah that actually when we were in Egypt, we were in the exile of the faculty of speech. And when we left Egypt, we then became free in our faculty of speech. And what does that mean? Speech is the connector between our minds, between the spiritual aspect of us to the physical. It kind of connects the two worlds of our consciousness into the material world. And the whole idea of Pesach is actually the rectification of speech, of being mindful of what we're saying, of also being mindful of what kind of ideas we want to birth into the world and the power of our speech. We also know that Pesach, a mouth that speaks, is also central to this, and a big part of that is prayer? How do we use our mouths to pray, to bring ideas and our deepest longings into the world through the faculty of speech? You can say, cool, I have something that I want, I'm just going to think about it. But what do you do when you create sound? You're actually creating a vibrational frequency. You're creating a vessel to receive light. So when you pray, you can pray in silence, but praying out loud, praying with words is that much more impactful because it actually creates a new vibrational energetic frequency in the world. So Pesach is all about the rectification of speech, of being mindful to how you're speaking, to what you're saying. I know that's definitely something that I'm going to be working on and have been working on. But Pesach, a mouth that speaks, Nisan, the rectification of speech. Also, the mouth is a big part of what we do on Pesach, eating the Matzah, eating the meal, saying the prayers, speaking the Haggadah. Pesach has a lot to do with the faculty of mouth, of what we're taking in and what we're putting out. So, just to wrap it up, these were a few of the deeper spiritual meanings of Pesach. We've spoken about moving and being free people. We've spoken about the nullification of ego and of pride, of rectifying our speech, of Pesach being just the festival of miracles. And I really bless us, first of all, for our hostages to be let go. I think, we have this Moses, free my people, let my people go. And I really feel that prayer right now of just Hashem, let the hostages go. Hamas, let the hostages go. We want our people to be free. And I think that this is definitely a time where we can really feel what that means. So on that note, wishing you a healthy, amazing, expansive, delicious, just the best Pesach ever. Get along with your family. Don't make such a big deal out of a lot of things. I know being a lot with the fam is can get a lot sometimes, but enjoy it and Chag Sameach, and we'll see you soon.